When I moved in with my fiancé, Ethan, our life blossomed. Living together was cozy, and Ethan was incredibly kind to me. But one thing bothered me: the storage room I wasn't allowed to enter. One day, I found a key that fit the forbidden door. One click and I opened the door to a mystery that shocked me. After 2 years of dating, my fiancé, Ethan, proposed that I move into his house. I was thrilled and eagerly accepted. His house was large and cozy, with a beautiful garden and a spacious kitchen. I had just moved in a few days earlier and already, our life together felt perfect. Every morning, we took turns making breakfast. On Ethan's days, I would wake up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee and pancakes sizzling. That morning was no different. As I walked into the kitchen, Ethan greeted me with a warm smile. "Good morning, love. Breakfast is almost ready," he said, setting the table for us. "Good morning," I replied, grabbing a cup of coffee. "It smells amazing." We sat together, enjoying our meal and chatting about our plans for the day. Mornings quickly became my favorite part of our routine. Living together was wonderful, even though it had only been a few days. We spent our time unpacking, arranging furniture, and decorating. Ethan was always there to help, making the transition smooth and enjoyable. After breakfast, as I continued unpacking boxes in the living room, I noticed a strange, locked storage room in the corner of the house. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to ask Ethan about it. "Ethan, what's in that storage room?" I asked, pointing to the door. Ethan glanced at the door and then at me, a hint of unease in his eyes. "Oh, that's just an old storage room. It's full of old things I haven't had time to sort through and discard. Don't worry about it. Do you have the key?" I looked at him, trying to hide my growing curiosity. He shook his head. "No, and you don't need to go in there. I'll deal with it eventually. Maybe I could store some of my things in there?" I suggested. "Trust me, there's plenty of space in the house for all your things and then some. No need to bother with that old storage room. I promise I'll get to it one day." His response left me more curious than ever. What could be in that room that he didn't want me to see? Maybe he's hiding something more than just old junk. What about old secrets? In 2 years, Ethan had never given me any reason to doubt him. But little did I know that my curiosity would lead me much further than the mystery of the forbidden room. One afternoon, while Ethan was at work, I decided to clean up the house. As I dusted the bedroom, my curiosity led me to his nightstand. It was cluttered with papers, tickets, receipts, and various knickknacks. I hesitated, knowing it wasn't polite to snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. I sifted through the items, organizing them neatly. Suddenly, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. I pulled out a key. Could this be the key to the locked storage room? Should I? This might be the key, I whispered to myself. The room had always intrigued me, and Ethan's reluctance to discuss it only fueled my curiosity. "Okay, here we go," I muttered, deciding to give it a try. My heart pounded as I approached the storage room door. Please fit, I thought, inserting the key into the lock. To my surprise, it fit perfectly. I turned the key, and the door creaked open. At first glance, the room looked like a collection of random junk. Dusty old books were scattered everywhere. I sighed in relief, thinking Ethan was simply embarrassed to admit he was hoarding useless stuff. I walked further into the room, scanning the mess. A part of me felt guilty for snooping, but another part was driven by the need to understand why Ethan kept this room locked. I picked up an old, dusty book and blew on it, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Yuck! I coughed slightly before setting the book back down. Suddenly something caught my eye. "What's this?" I wondered aloud. Hidden beneath the pile was a bundle of letters tied with a ribbon. Why are these tucked away so carefully? I untied the ribbon and began to read. The first letter was dated a few years ago. My heart raced as I read the words. "Dear Ethan, I hope you're okay. I've been thinking about you a lot, and I really want to see you. I know things are complicated, and we have to be careful. Mom can't find out about our meeting. She wouldn't get it, and it would just make things worse. I know it's hard, but I need you to know that I still care about you, no matter what. Love, Claire." As I finished reading, the words echoed in my mind. I couldn't understand why Ethan would have these letters. "This can't be real," I murmured. Alongside the letters, I found photographs of Ethan with a woman I had never seen before. They looked happy, smiling and embracing in the photos. The discovery left me reeling. Who is she? Why has Ethan never mentioned her? I felt a knot forming in my stomach as I tried to make sense of it all. Just as I reached for another stack of papers, I heard the front door open. Panic surged through me. Ethan was home. I stuffed the letter into the inner pocket of my sweatshirt and stood up, my heart racing. Ethan walked into the room, his eyes widening in shock when he saw me. "What are you doing in here?" he demanded. I found the key and I just wanted to see what was in here," I stammered. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" His face turned red with anger. "I told you not to go in here. This is my private space." Ethan was furious, and it was the first time since we met that he had raised his voice at me. He strode over and snatched the key from my hand. "You had no right to snoop around." "I'm sorry, Ethan, but I needed to know what you were hiding," I said, trying to keep calm. "It's none of your business. Just stay out of this room." With that, he stormed out. I stood there, shaken and confused, the hidden letter pressing against my chest. I had a wild idea to verify my suspicions. I needed to know more about the person I was living with under the same roof. I grabbed the car keys and headed out the door. I decided to visit the address mentioned in the letters. As I drove, my mind raced with questions. Who was Claire? What was Ethan hiding? The journey seemed to take forever, and I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in the pit of my stomach. When I arrived, a modest, well-kept house stood before me. Taking a deep breath, I approached the front door and knocked. A moment later, it opened to reveal the woman from the photos. "Hello, can I help you?" she asked, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Hi, I'm looking for Claire. Are you Claire?" I tried to keep my voice steady. The woman's expression turned cold. "Why are you asking about Claire? Who are you?" I'm engaged to Ethan," I stammered. "I found some letters from Claire, and I wanted to understand." Before I could finish, she cut me off. "You have no business here. Whatever you found, it didn't concern you. Please leave." "Claire, please," I pleaded. "I need to know the truth." The woman's face hardened even more. "I am not Claire. But it's none of your business," she repeated. "Leave now." Feeling defeated, I turned to walk away. But as I reached the main street, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see a young woman hurrying to catch up. "Wait," she called out. "I'm Claire," she said, catching her breath. "I saw you talking to my mom. She can be a bit protective." "I understand," I said softly. "I found some letters you wrote to Ethan." "I had no idea." Claire nodded. "I recently found an old photo of my mother with Ethan. It got me curious, so I used her old records to find his address. I've been writing to him, but he never responded. I realized the letters were from Claire, not a lover, pleading to connect with her. So, Ethan is your father?" "Yes," she replied. "He's my biological father. My mom never talked about him, but I wanted to meet him." "Thank you for telling me," I said, feeling a storm of emotions. "I need to talk to Ethan about this." But halfway to the car, I turned back to Claire and called out, "You know what? You could help me with this. Would you like to meet your father?" Claire smiled at me, a hopeful glimmer in her eyes. "Yes, I would love to." That night, I returned home late. Ethan was sitting on the couch with an open bottle of wine beside him, and I could see that he had calmed down a bit. "Ethan, we need to talk," I said as I entered the living room. He looked up. "What is it?" "I went to the address in the letters," I began. "I met Rebecca and Claire." His face paled, and he stood up quickly. "You did what?" "I had to know the truth," I said firmly. "Why didn't you tell me about Claire? Why did you keep this from me?" Ethan sighed and sank back onto the couch, covering his face with his hands. "I didn't know what to do," he said, his voice muffled. "I would sit in that storage room and read Claire's letters. But I was so scared of how much damage my absence had caused her and the pain I caused her and Rebecca, so I kept my distance." "But Ethan, she's your daughter," I said gently. "She deserves to know you. You deserve to know her." He looked up, tears in his eyes. I didn't know how to face her. I didn't know if I could do it. I sat down beside him and took his hand. You can do it. You have to. She's here. Ethan. She wants to know you. He looked at me. She's here? Yes, I said, standing up and walking to the front door. I opened it, revealing Claire, who had been standing outside, listening. Ethan was overcome with emotion as he saw his daughter. He stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. Claire, he whispered, his voice breaking. Dad, she replied, tears streaming down her face. They embraced, and through tears, began to reconcile. I watched, hopeful that this new connection would strengthen our future as a family. As they held each other, Ethan looked at me and then back at Claire. I left your mother a long time ago. I had no idea she was pregnant. I understand now why she holds so much resentment towards me. Claire nodded, still holding on to him. She never told me much about you. I only found out a few years ago. Ethan turned to me, his eyes pleading for guidance. What do I do now? I smiled softly. It's time to forgive, Ethan. It's time to move forward. At that moment, Rebecca walked into the room. She had been standing outside, unsure whether to come in. Rebecca, Ethan started, his voice shaking. I'm so sorry. I never knew. If I had known. When I found out about Claire, I was overwhelmed. I felt guilty for not being there and didn't know how to make it right. I thought you both might hate me. Rebecca looked at him, tears in her eyes. Emily found me. She's a remarkable woman, Ethan. I'm glad you two are together. I have no more reason to hold on to my anger. You now have to be the father Claire deserves. We should celebrate, I suggested, trying to lighten the mood. How about dinner? Everyone nodded in agreement. We went to the kitchen, and I found a bottle of sparkling wine. Ethan opened it with a pop, and we poured glasses for everyone. To the family, Ethan toasted, holding up his glass. To the family, we all echoed, clinking our glasses. We sat down to a warm dinner, sharing stories and laughter, celebrating the reunion and the beginning of a new chapter. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but we would face it together, one step at a time.